Hello and happy Wisdom Wednesday. Thank you so much for tuning in and for choosing to spend some of your time with me. My name is Milagros, and today we're going to begin with a reminder. I want to remind you that there is no one, not a single soul on the planet who is just like you. Now, I say that, and I understand that there are twins and there are doppelgangers and people who look like you. But there is no one who is just like you, especially when you're operating in your fullness, when you're being all that you are designed to be, when you're using your gifts and your talents and all of the wonderful things that make you you. There's no one on the planet like you. Now, I want to start there because we have a tendency to forget that there is no one like us. And so we try to be like someone else. We imitate someone else. We become a carbon copy of what someone else is doing or how they're living or how they act or how they dress or their style or their whatever. And I just want to be clear that your greatness comes in your fullness, right? Your greatness comes from living in your fullness. And God makes no mistakes. He did not make a mistake and say, I really wish I should have made her look like this. Or I really wish I should have made him a couple of feet or inches taller. No. He makes absolutely no mistakes in any of his designs. So you are absolutely perfect in accordance with his design for who you're supposed to be. You are God's masterpiece, period. Not you are God's masterpiece when you act like Beyonce. Not you're God's masterpiece when you dress like whoever. Not your God's masterpiece when you drive a certain car or you do a certain thing or you act like a certain somebody. No, you are God's masterpiece right now, in this moment, because there is no one on the planet like you. So I say that for two reasons. One, because again, we constantly need to be reminded that our greatness comes by operating in our fullness. And two, sometimes we are not necessarily copying other people, but we're lessening who we are so that other people can either be greater or be more or operate on a different level, or so we don't overpower anyone or overshadow anyone, or so we don't shine brighter than anyone. So because we're either told, sit still, be quiet, those kind of things growing up, or we're just basically told, like, you need to take a step back because this is so-and-so's time right now, or whatever. And so we live being less than our fullness, which is not okay. We have a tendency to do things that we don't want to do so we can buy and have things that we don't really need to impress people that we either don't like or don't know, right? Like, what is that? So recently I had a little interaction and I was offered to do this event. And I went down to have the meeting about the event. And when I sat down initially with the first person and we talked about the event, it was very exciting and it was going to pay a lot of money. Single mom, holla, right? Like, yes, please. And then I had to meet the boss, the owner. And when I met the owner, that went really well. We talked about a couple of things and then the two of them got up and left the room together. And then the initial person came back into the room and said, we'd love to offer you this opportunity and blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, yes, awesome, great, fantastic. But we have one request. And I thought, yeah, sure, go. Now, usually when I do events, I do talks, especially if they're at schools or different businesses, the one request tends to be, don't talk about God so much or don't talk about scripture so much, which I understand. It's a school. There are like rules and things. I get that, sure. I'm going to bring Jesus with me whether you want me to talk about him or not. He's going to be up in the room, okay? I don't have to keep pointing to him. So anyways, that's what I thought the request was going to be. Instead, the request went something like this. All of this, we just need you to tone it down a little bit. And I sat with that for a couple of seconds and then I had to ask, tone it down? And the person said, yes. You're so positive. You have so much energy. You're just so, and that's kind of our boss's thing. And our boss wants that to continue to be their thing. So we just need you to tone it down a little bit. And when it registered what I was being asked to do, I was both shocked and I was impressed that someone would ask out loud and that someone would ask out loud. Because we have a tendency to do it anyways, and we have a tendency to subtly ask people to be less than themselves, but to very directly ask someone to tone it down. So I had to be clear, and I said to this person, I just want to be clear that I'm hearing you correctly. Are you asking me to be less of who I am so that someone else can feel better about who they are? And like that, I mean, in an instant, the response was, yes, thank you. I knew you would understand. We all have to do it sometime. And I felt really sad in that moment because I realized that we all do it. And more than sometime. We do it a lot. We do it way too often. And I was just overwhelmed in that moment with this, I have to leave. I have to go. So long story short, I said no thank you. And as I got up to leave, the person said, but we're paying you a lot of money. Actually, you haven't paid me anything. And so I have to go. Thank you for the opportunity. You're looking for a watered down version of Maria, and she exists out there in the world somewhere, but she's not me. So if there's ever an event or something that comes up that you are ready for me in my fullness, you have my number. Until then, this is not for me. And I proceeded to leave. Walking out the office door and walking to the front of the building door was such a long walk because instantly fear popped up. Like, you're a single mother, your child is, does sports, there's all this extra stuff. Like, what are you doing? You walk away from this, just do it this one time. And I thought, no, shut up. Like, I literally had to say to all of this negative side talk that was happening, shut up. Because I cannot take this money and not live in my fullness because the cost would be too great. The cost would be too great. And I know there's a lot of people who won't understand or can't understand walking away from money. I get that. And that's okay. That's their journey. That's where they're at. And they are chasing the dollar. But I cannot chase the dollar and forget the source, right? Because ultimately, my source is not the dollar. I can't lose myself $1 at a time. Not anymore, not ever again. I did that. I have done that. I did that for many years where I would be less than myself so that other people could step into the light. Either they would ask me or other people would ask me to just bring it down. Maybe not so directly, but definitely. And I find that in the world, we get this a lot. Like people call us extra like it's a bad thing, or they say, you're like too emotional, or you're too sweet, or you're too sensitive, or you're too honest. Is there such thing? Is there really a such thing? And so I just can't, I couldn't. And when I got out the very front door of the building, after I said to shut up, when I got out the front of the building, there was a moment of like complete exhale and done. I'm done with selling my selling my soul for an allotted amount of money. Why? The source that I'm connected to is infinite, and the source is God, and God wants me to operate in my fullness because anything less is not who He designed me to be. So I walked away from a financial opportunity, but I gained a learning opportunity and a growing opportunity and a spiritual strengthening opportunity that was 10 times stronger. So, and I want to be clear that money isn't bad, right? Money isn't a bad thing. It's the love of money that's the root of all evil. We know that. Money isn't of itself, in and of itself, isn't a bad thing. It's when we are willing to sell ourselves short and to sell ourselves, period, for money, that it becomes a problem, right? So I have a suggestion. Let's make a commitment to ourselves, to our children, to stop wasting time being less than who we are so that others can feel better about themselves, right? I feel like that's disrespectful to God who created me in my fullness. Their feelings are their own and they have to work those out. There seems to be a lot of people who have they think that their gift is just theirs and their thing is just their thing. But that's not even real. We all have multiple gifts. There are multiple people who have similar gifts or similar skills, but there really is no competition when you operate in that gifting and in that skill and in that talent as who you are in your fullness, because there is no one like you. Your only real competition is you from yesterday. That's true. You have permission to be your true self, to live in your truth and in all of your greatness. The scariest and bravest thing that you can do is to love yourself and then to live accordingly. Even if used to making yourself small for others, even if used to like dimming your light for others, there's always time to make the necessary changes to become your greatest self. That time will always exist. You get to, on any given day and without prior notice, change your rituals, raise your standards, start saying yes, start saying no, doing whatever it is that you need to do to line yourself up in accordance with love, with operating in your greatness, with being all that God has called you to be. You get to do that. So, yes, I could have taken the money, but at what cost? And then is it worth it? So I leave you with that. And I hope that it helps encourage someone who is struggling to fight to live in their fullness, to be their greatest self. I hope that it encourages someone to remember that God is ultimately the source, and that you could chase the dollar all you want, but you're chasing the dollar and selling your soul at the same time, So I leave you with that, and I hope that you operate in love, that you act from love and gratitude, and that you ultimately just really love yourself and all that God has created you to be, because that is the answer. It always has been, and it always will be. And when we get to that place and we're able to live from that place, super sparkly everything. Have a great night. Have a great rest of your week, and have a fantastical weekend.